Okay, let's go through and let's get into our most requested video every single week. And I'm really sorry for everybody who sends me DMs on Instagram, sends me DMs on Twitter, sends me DMs on Patreon asking about the bets that we're making on Monday nights and Thursday nights. To be completely honest, those games with the slates that they're laid out on Underdog, I don't think you should be betting on those Thursday night. I don't think you should be going and looking at those Monday night games. If it's only one game on the slate, I'm not going to lie. Most of the time, I just completely avoid them. I think I've made like 2 bets on Thursday night games outside of Thanksgiving, of course, because Thanksgiving, you had the entire, I want to say slate of games. It was just a 3-game slate, but of course, you had the entire slate. So like I said, I don't really think that you should be going out there and really doing much on Underdog on Thursday or Monday. At least I haven't really necessarily seen a lot of lines that you can take advantage of. We've been profitable so far betting on those Sunday games exclusively. And of course, you know, one thing that we do every single one of these $1,000 player prop bankroll challenge videos is instead of just showing y'all only screenshots, I go through and I show you the entire history of every bet that we have made, whether that's on the live stream or not. So y'all can just see exactly how transparent we are. And of course, you're going to see a lot of red here, but keep in mind, they are going to be parlays. So, I mean, every minus 17 that you get here, it really, 1 out of 6 of these needs to be a plus 102, and that's a profitable bet. So we actually had a pretty bad week last week in that we went and we were super aggressive. Now, good thing we hit these 2 102s, or it would have been pretty ugly. The week before that, we had a fantastic one, plus 102, plus 102, plus 204, plus 102. And then, I mean, this is whenever we had the pretty bad stretch of games. We got the plus 51, but this is when it got ugly for us. That 2-week span, plus 102. Actually, maybe this is when it's about to get really ugly for us. And of course, I do this to show y'all realistic expectations of what we have actually done so far this season. We have been profitable, but keep in mind, that's not going to be the case every single week. A lot of these weeks, we are going to lose. And remember that Underdog Fantasy pays me when you sign up with promo code FLOCK. And they pay you when you sign up with promo code FLOCK at the same time. So, I mean, keep that in mind in knowing that they are going to be doing that because they know more than 99% of the people watching this live stream, including myself. Now, keep in mind, yeah, you only need a couple of these big ones to go through and be profitable. So I want to say maybe we've gotten a little bit lucky so far this season. Maybe we've just crushed it in general. Nonetheless, I am very happy with the results that we have had. Now let's switch back over and let's go to the pick'em lines that we are going to have for this week in particular. And of course, go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You can find the link in the live chat. You can find it in the description of the live stream as well as the comment section if you were looking at this a little bit later on. But yeah, please make sure you go down there, drop that like, subscribe to the channel. Underdog Fantasy is available in damn near every single state, not available in Nevada, not available in Washington State, Hawaii, Wyoming, and I think Louisiana. I don't know. I've heard some people telling me that they can do it in Louisiana, some people telling me they can't. But let's go through and let's dive into these player props, starting it off with the New York Giants and the Miami Dolphins. And here, I know that you have had Miami on a roll as of late. I honestly think maybe we want to be going through and taking some unders in this game, betting that's going to be a lower scoring contest in general, going through and taking the under on Mike Lennon at 208 passing yards. And keep in mind, I mean, whenever we're going to go through and take one under, and one reason that we're doing this is you have no Sterling Shepard, you have no, I almost said Kenny Golladay. No, you have no Kadarius Toney in this matchup either. I really think that this should be a difficult spot against an improved Miami Dolphins defense for the Giants to be able to effectively move the ball down the field. But when we take this under on Mike Lennon, how we've been profitable so far this season is by building in the correlation. I know y'all are tired of hearing me talk about it, but it is something that we need to discuss. We're going to take the under on Tua Tagovailoa. And then with Jalen Waddle, he has crushed this over the past few weeks. I mean, to look at what you've had from Jalen Waddle from a fantasy football standpoint, he has been fantastic. Now, I will point out that with the 66.5 receiving yards mark, he has actually gotten there. I mean, if we are looking at over the past month, he has gotten there 2 out of the 5 times over the past 5 weeks. I apologize, not just over the past month. And that's been with no Devontae Parker. That's been with no Will Fuller. You should have Devontae Parker back in this game. And with Devontae Parker being back in, and if we are already betting that this is going to be a lower scoring contest in general, I think it would make some sense to take the under on Jalen Waddle here. It's more about me wanting to get in the under on Mike Lennon and Tua Tagovailoa than Jalen Waddle, but we want to build in that correlation. And if Tua hits his under, it's going to mean it's more likely for Jalen Waddle to hit his own. So let's go through and let's bet this first string of unders for this game. And now our next game with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons. This is a little bit of an interesting scenario because I actually like this line of Mike Evans at 63.5 receiving yards. Now, of course, I mean, if you're looking at Rob Gronkowski coming back in, Gronk is going to take some volume here, but you have no Antonio Brown in this game. Now, one thing that I would have trouble doing is if we decide to go through and take this over on Mike Evans, we'd want to be taking an over on the Atlanta Falcons side of things here. And I really don't see one that stands out to us. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of taking this over for Matt Ryan. I don't necessarily want to go through and take the over on Cordell Patterson either. Of course, you really like going through and looking at Cordell Patterson from a fantasy football standpoint, knowing the cheap receptions he can have. But at 75.5 total yards, I think this is actually probably going to be a stay away game from us. Now, our next one with the Los Angeles Chargers and the Cincinnati Bengals. I know a lot of people are wanting to bet that this is going to be a very high-scoring contest. I actually am looking at this line of Keenan Allen at 81.5 receiving yards. I'm not a massive fan of this. I think maybe this is another spot where we want to go through and we want to take an under. I mean, with Keenan Allen, of course, the volume has been there consistently all season for Keenan Allen and the Los Angeles Chargers. From a fantasy football standpoint, you really like him. And over the past month, he has gotten to 81.5 receiving yards every single week. Maybe this is a spot where it's not as appealing as I wanted to give it credit for. Now, let me go check out what we've had with Justin Herbert as of late in Los Angeles here. And maybe we can check out this Justin Herbert line of 289.5 receiving yards. I mean, with Justin Herbert, this is a line that he has gotten there out of the past month 3 out of 4 times and hasn't really been close either of failing any other of those weeks. This is an interesting spot. I think that maybe we're just going to treat this as a stay away game as well. Because even if we were to go down, look at Cincinnati. I mean, with Joe Mixon, obviously you're expecting this to be a massive Joe Mixon game, knowing that this is going to be a very soft run defense from the Los Angeles Chargers. But they already have Joe Mixon at 113 total yards. Now, y'all know there's been nobody, and I repeat, nobody in fantasy that has liked Joe Mixon as much as I have. I think it's going to be a really hard spot to go through and bet that over, though, even though I've been a massive fan of Joe Mixon all season now. I like the over on Jamar Chase, even though he has failed to get this for a very long time now. I think that he is due for a bounce back game, but it's going to be a tough matchup where we're assuming the Cincinnati Bengals are running the ball. So don't really want to go through and take the over on Chase and Joe Burrow. I think it's going to be yet another stay away game from us. I know we are being very, very boring here, but let's go to our next contest. And this will be the Minnesota Vikings and I almost said Indianapolis Colts, but in Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions. Now, the issue with this game in particular is just going through and trying to project what you're going to see with the run to pass ratio, because you're going to assume that this is a game that the Minnesota Vikings lead the majority of the time. And if that's going to be the case, are they having to really throw the ball with Kirk Cousins? Are they having to throw the ball with Justin Jefferson? I mean, if you're going to go through and check out what we have had with Justin Jefferson so far this season, yeah, Justin Jefferson has been fantastic, getting there at 88.5 total yards over the past 5 weeks. I mean, over the past 6 weeks, he's only gotten there twice. He's only gotten there like 4 times so far this season. I know the volume has been trending up where he's averaged over 10 targets a game over the past 3 weeks. But knowing this matchup in particular, I actually think that we're going to bet that this is going to be a very run-heavy game. I think that maybe we take the under on Justin Jefferson here. And going over and looking at Kirk Cousins, I think we're going to be taking the under on either his passing yards or his completions. Let me go through and look at the recent game log that we've had with Kirk Cousins and trying to determine what we are going to be doing here. Now, 22.5 completions. That's about the range that he's been hovering at since his bye. Now, 279 passing yards. He's only gotten there twice since the bye week as well. So you know what? We're actually going to take the under on passing yards for Kirk Cousins. We're going to be taking the under on Justin Jefferson's receiving yards at the same time. And if we're going through and making this bet, we want to get that correlation coming in. We want to take that under on Jared Goff, especially if this offense won't have DeAndre Swift, one of their best receiving game weapons here. I think that it will be a pretty hard spot. And keep in mind, we're betting the under on Cousins. We're betting the under on Jefferson. So essentially, we're betting this game is going to be a little bit lower scoring in general. So we're going to take the under on Jared Goff at the same time. So, oh my God, that would have been really bad. We almost bet $200 on that. No, we're not going to bet 200. Let's bet 17 to win 102. I think that's the perfect mark for us to get in a lot of these bets at the same time. Now, going over to Jonathan Taylor, I mean, they have Jonathan Taylor for either 108 rushing yards or almost 130 total yards against the Houston Texans. Now, the issue is with Houston, with a lot of the uncertainty that you have around their current injuries, if you're going through and looking at these lines that you have for the Houston Texans, there aren't many available. I mean, with Brandon Cooks and the illness, we're really having to wait a little bit to get the official lines on Sunday morning. So maybe this will be a game that we bet tomorrow morning in the start-sit live stream. But for now, I think we're actually going to have to be avoiding this one. Very similar to the Philadelphia Eagles. I hate to do this, but I don't necessarily know if we could go through and make this bet on the Philadelphia Eagles without the Jalen Hurts player prop up. And also that's keeping off of Dallas Goedert. Actually, you know what? This seems pretty damn aggressive. For them to have both Ty Johnson and Elijah Moore in this range, whenever you're having Zach Wilson as the starting quarterback here, and at the same time, I mean, Ty Johnson looks like he is in a 3-man committee. This past week, Ty Johnson had 6 rush attempts and 1 target out of the backfield. Am I missing something? Please, in the live chat, before I make this bet right now, I need your help in the live chat. Did something change in New York? Is one of these running backs going to be inactive in this backfield? Is that why they have such a high mark on Ty Johnson? Please, 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 please let me know that. I think we actually need to be taking the under on Ty Johnson. And I mean, with Zach Wilson, I think he's an intriguing under to be taking at the same time. Now, the issue is, I think we would also be looking at the Elijah Moore under as a real possibility, knowing that you have Jamison Crowder and Corey Davis most likely both good to go. So let me look up Elijah Moore with what we had this past week. I mean, with Elijah Moore against the Houston Texans, it was a really nice matchup. He did get 8 targets. So him getting 8 targets in this game, probably going to be an avoid for me for Elijah Moore. So let's bet the under on Zach Wilson. And let's go through and let's bet the under on Devonta Smith as well at 62.5 total yards, even though he has been getting there as of late. Now, I do not see anybody in the live chat right now telling me if we have like Tevin Coleman or the other running back. Okay, no, Z Millie coming out and saying that there are no inactives in that New York Jets backfield. So we're going to go through. We're going to pay 17 on the unders here. Have we bet a single game with the overs yet? Are we just being extremely boring? I will say we've had more success betting unders so far this season. Is something I'm trying to do a little bit more here. Now, going over to our next game, we're going to have the Andy Dalton-led Chicago Bears going up against the Arizona Cardinals. With the issue is we can't make a bet on this game right now. You don't have really any clarity on Kyler Murray. It's going to make it harder for me to make a bet. And at the same time, because you don't know if Kyler Murray or DeAndre Hopkins are going to be officially playing. I know Hopkins right now looks like he's going to play. Underdog Fantasy is not offering any Arizona Cardinals lines. Y'all know I'm only making bets that are within the same game. That's how we've been profitable this season. That's how we've been sticking this correlation in. So for now, we're going to be avoiding the Chicago game. And we will circle back to this tomorrow morning whenever we have those lines. But now, okay, our next matchup, I think this is going to be an easy under for Derek Carr for me. I know Derek Carr gets there this past week. And with the Derek Carr statistics so far this season, if you look at him, he is getting to 273 passing yards quite often. Now, the issue is this is just a completely different scenario with no Darren Waller and at the same time, no Henry Ruggs, no John Gruden. Like, you can't look at the previous statistics with Derek Carr and assume that those carry over. And with Derek Carr in particular, this is a quarterback that a lot of that production has come in overtime games. Like, if you're also going through and capping what you had through 4 quarters for Derek Carr in this offense, that passing offense is actually going to scale back drastically as well based on that alone. Now, going over to what we're going to be seeing with the Washington football team, I actually think that's a very fair mark for Taylor Heineke. Like, I don't necessarily want to be betting the under on Taylor Heineke there at 250 passing yards. I know that he hasn't gotten there over the past month or so. I mean, over the past month, he has gotten to 250 passing yards once, and that was with 256. But with a fully healthy Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas now, I think it's going to be a little less likely that you see Taylor Heineke get scaled back below 250 passing yards. So I'm actually probably going to be avoiding that in particular. Maybe we can go over and check out Logan Thomas here. And with Logan Thomas, the stats you're going to be looking at, pretty hard to tell anything from them. This past week, he does get 6 targets. Earlier in this season, he was getting up there to over 40 receiving yards. You know what? I really do like this Derek Carr under, but going through and looking at all these Washington statistics, I don't necessarily think I can take an under here. So this is probably going to be another very boring game that I just have to avoid because, like I said, I may like this Derek Carr under at 273.5 passing yards. Now, the issue is the only way I'm betting that number is if we can find some lines that I think are fine to take the under on the other side of the ball so we can build in the correlation. I'm not going to go through and take this Derek Carr under and then pick out a line from this game between the Los Angeles Rams and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that's how you lose money. I think that's how we give Underdog Fantasy the edge. And we're here trying to make that profit over the entire season, which we've done so far. And I want to keep that going. So let's avoid that. I'm not going to make a bet just to make a bet. And now our next game will be the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Los Angeles Rams, where right now they don't have the lines up for Odell Beckham Jr. and Van Jefferson because they don't necessarily have the clarity, as well as they don't have the lineup for Darrell Henderson because they don't have the clarity on that scenario as well. I mean, it's frustrating that we have these game time decisions going into Sunday that we aren't going to have every single game that we can look to go out there and bet. Now, in the case of the Jacksonville Jaguars, we have to take some unders here. I mean, I think that it's honestly kind of laughable, the lines that you're looking at with Leviska Chanal and Marvin Jones. Now, I get it that Jamal Agnew, is no longer here. Dan Arnold is no longer here as well. I guess if you remove both of them from this offense, it's going to be really hard to project really anybody else to get any type of volume in Jacksonville. I mean, with Leviska Chanal, this is a player that's had 5 receptions over the past 2 weeks. And I guess once you take Jamal Agnew and Dan Arnold away, it will be fine. It's just really weird to see that they're combining for so much of this Trevor Lawrence passing production here in these projections. We're going to avoid this yet again, and then we're going to go through and make some bets that I really like in this next one. Devonta Freeman, this is going to be an easy under for us to take. I know that he has gotten out there and had, I believe, 16 carries in back-to-back weeks, but now this is going to be just rushing yards. These are not going to be total yards. If it was 50 total yards, I would definitely be avoiding this mark, but at 49.5, I think that if you're looking at a lot of the production so far this season, that's when you had no Latavius Murray. It's going to be a little bit skewed. I think we're going to be looking to avoid the Devonta Freeman side of this. And honestly, Najee Harris, I know this is a really tough matchup against the Baltimore Ravens. I know this Pittsburgh Steelers defense has looked really bad. But I almost want to go through and take the over on Lamar, as well as I think I may want to take the over at the same time with Najee Harris. Yeah, let's go through and let's make this bet. This is a really interesting line to take. We're going to bet 17 here to win 102. That's going to be one of the very few times that we've gone and we've bet the under on a running back, the over on the same quarterback, and the over on the opponent's running back. With Najee Harris, I know it's a really bad matchup. I know it's been a really bad offense as well. And it sucks. Same thing, San Francisco. I mean, there's some uncertainty right there with what you have in both offenses, really. So the lines are not going to be officially out. So we can go through. We can check some rivals lines really quick before we end this live stream just to see if there's anything that I really think is interesting. Now, pass yards, that doesn't really matter. Rush yards, Gaskin versus Barkley, not going to be taking a side there. Receiving yards, 22.5 to Kenny Golladay. Like, the thing is, you could go through and you could maybe... No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Let's find our next one. Receiving yards, Gesicki versus Saquon Barkley. Barkley's getting an 18.5 edge. We'll avoid that. I kind of like Evans plus 7.5 versus Godwin. Rushing yards, Leonard Fournette versus Patterson plus 30. Please let me know in the live chat right now if any of this goes through and stands out to you. Let me know if you think any of this stands out to you that we should be circling back around with. Receiving yards, I feel like Joe Mixon plus 23.5 versus Austin Eckler is a line that I honestly like a little bit here. That is really interesting to have Austin Eckler at 23.5 more. As a receiver, I mean, that's not going to be a big deal, but for a running back to have that kind of edge, I mean, Joe Mixon has had the involvement as a receiver as of late. Yes, he only comes away with -2 receiving yards this past week, but I mean, he did get 4 targets out of the backfield. I mean, Austin Eckler, he's getting up there consistently to 60 receiving yards. You know what? That's actually a line that we have to avoid. I guess my monkey brain thought it was a good idea, but when you really look at it, it's probably not. Alexander Madison versus Jamal Williams plus 20 yards. Give me Alexander Madison. I really like this Madison side. Now, the thing is, can we go through and can we find another place to build around with this Alexander Madison side? Like, maybe we want to take the Alexander Madison side here and then go over and take the under on Jared Goff. This is what we're going to do. I actually really like this line. I like this line. Take Madison minus 20 yards versus Jamal Williams and then go through and also double down and take the Jared Goff under here. Just bet that this is going to be a game that you actually have it very high scoring. Okay, we're just going to bet 17 to win 51. We're going to bet 17 to win 51. We're going to essentially bet on the Alexander Madison side of this and the under on Jared Goff. So betting against the Detroit Lions offense is probably always a pretty good thing to do. Okay, so that's one line that I like. Okay, Frolicking Heifer says he likes Evans +7. The issue is, if we're going to be taking Evans +7, I agree with you. Like, that was my initial reaction to take Evans +7.5 versus Chris Godwin. But from there, how do we build in correlation to the ticket slip? Like, that's the issue. Like, if we're taking Evans +7.5 versus Chris Godwin, we can't really do anything beyond that. Like, I really like the idea of going through and taking Alexander Madison and then also taking the under on Jared Goff and essentially making that one correlated bet that the Detroit Lions offense really fails. It's going to be a lot harder to do that on this instance, though. Najee Harris I have to do this. I feel like we have to. We have to bet Najee Harris -8.5 rushing yards versus Devonta Freeman. I feel like that is honestly a little bit ridiculous here. Now, beyond that, but how do we build in the correlation? As I've said, this is the number one thing that we need to be figuring out. Because Underdog Fantasy, of course, they're not going to let us just take Najee Harris +8.5 and then go bet the under on Freeman, or that would literally just be... There's no way Underdog Fantasy could be profitable if that was the case. So we bet that Najee Harris is going to have more rushing yards than Devonta Freeman here. So how are we then going to go through and double that down? You know what? This Lamar Jackson line at 302 total yards... I really like that line. Like, I think Lamar can easily get there. If anything, if we were making a bet just on Lamar Jackson, I think that we could bet that over. But the issue is, if we were going to be going through and if we are going to be betting on Najee Harris to have more rushing yards than Devonta Freeman, I think the way we build in the correlation is taking an under on this Baltimore Ravens side. Now, whether that's Lamar, Hollywood, let's check out Hollywood Brown here, because with Hollywood, you do have a fully healthy Rashad Bateman at the same time. With Hollywood Brown, I mean, yes, lately he hasn't been getting there. I mean, but he's had 13 targets. He's had 10 targets over the past 2 weeks. This is a player that's had double-digit targets every week he's played since week 6. So 66.5 receiving yards. I know on paper that seems like he's a lot because he's not getting there. But if you look at the opportunity underlying the offense, I mean, Hollywood Brown should be a favorite to get there. Let's check out Mark Andrews really quick. Riggy says he likes Lamar +7. Andrews is at 65, 73, 63. So he's consistently getting here as well. You know what we're going to do? As I've already said, I like this Lamar Jackson line, but I really want to have some money down on the Najee Harris plus Devonta Freeman. And we want to build in the correlation as well. So with how we're going to do that, we're going to have to pick one of these players between Andrews, Hollywood, and Lamar Jackson to take the under with. And if we're picking one of these players, I think that under is actually going to come in the form of Lamar Jackson. Now, hear me out. We're going to make this bet, and we're also going to make another bet. We already have an over on Lamar Jackson, that bet, but we're going to make one more. We're going to bet 17 to win 50. And then I think that we're actually going to go through and also at the same time bet the over on Lamar and the over on Mark Andrews. And then we're going to be picking an over here at the same time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to come down to Deontay. Actually, no, we can just bet Najee Harris. I really like that Najee Harris line, even in a brutal matchup. We'll bet 17 to win 102 there. And of course, thank you so much for coming out, hanging out with us in the live stream. And as I've said time and time again, I'm an idiot. We are going to be getting this wrong eventually. So please don't copy and paste my bets. I think it's a great idea and it's going to get you rich. I promise you, I am not smart. Don't do that. But what you should do is go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK. And when you make your first deposit, they will make sure that you win because they will match that first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. You can find the link in the live chat. Find it in the description of the live stream. Use promo code FLOCK for that deposit bonus. Available in pretty much every single state. Now, thank you so much for supporting the channel. I really hope you all have a great day. And I hope I see you all in the live stream tonight.